Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, my friends. This is your friendly neighborhood darts connector. You already know that I'm doing a podcast, Darts Connector Musings, where I'm talking to people that I meet during my work on, work in arts and culture sector in Philadelphia. And if you've been following my podcast for a short time, even a short time, you already know that I was a part of Arts and Culture Task Force, the organization, actually it's not, it was kind of really ad hoc organization, I would call her, that started at the end of last year and was about to be dissolved, if I'm not mistaken. And I was talking to several people who were involved in this organization. But today, my guest is Councilman at Large of City of Philadelphia, Isiah Thomas, who was the reason this Arts and Culture Task Force started. Councilman, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I appreciate your listening audience as well, too.
That's great. So my first question, how did it happen? From what I understand, you never was involved in arts. You were not a big supporter before. At least I've never heard about you before that. I'll be honest with you, I've been involved in Philadelphia arts and culture for many years. But then all of a sudden, I heard the name Isiah Thomas, and I got really curious. So tell me how you became involved and what piqued your interest.
Thank you. I think that's a great question. And for me, I was sworn in the city council in 2020, prior to the start of the pandemic, and initially upon campaigning and eventually winning a council at large seat, a lot of my priorities surrounded around youth and young people, business opportunities for low income and minority-based businesses. I'm sorry, not low income, small businesses and minority-based businesses, advocating for workers and families across the city of Philadelphia. And with those initiatives in mind, I was sworn in, and before you know it, the pandemic hit. And once the pandemic hit, I think that really turned our entire way of living upside down. And throughout the course of not just dealing with the coronavirus crisis, but the economic crisis, we've seen a bunch of advocacy taking place for folks who essentially were desperate. And I think for me, nobody won my heart during the course of that process like arts and culture, like the arts and culture community did. And there were a lot of things going on, and there's still a lot of things that we need to take place. But when I was able to learn the impact that the arts and culture community had on the city of Philadelphia, from a culture perspective and lifestyle perspective, but also from a fiscal viability perspective, to me, it was a no-brainer that we needed to ensure that we save the arts and culture community here in the city of Philadelphia, so we can assure that we put ourselves in a position to, when we think about what does the recovery process look like, financially, socially, mentally, it's imperative that we have that talent, that homegrown talent that's here in Philadelphia, feel like they don't have to move or go somewhere else, especially because of the pandemic, because they weren't getting the resources or supports that they need here in the city. So I think that we had some success. I think that a lot of our artists were able to remain. I think that we were able to put a lot of dollars in the pockets of arts and arts organizations. And I think that we still have a little bit more work to do as well, too. So for me, again, it started with the advocacy and moved into a collaborative effort into working with the council president as well as my colleagues to put us in a position to be able to give a voice to those who were on the ground, for those who eat, sleep, and breathe this work every single day, and allow them to advise us as it relates to what direction we should be going in and how we can best support the community.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. When you got introduced, when you started working this Arts and Culture Task Force, and if I'm not mistaken, there were 18 people originally, and then it became 40, and then it split in different subcommittees. So it was a lot of people involved. what is your current understanding of what is arts and culture in Philadelphia, how it's structured?
I mean, I think that my current understanding of what is art and culture is everything that encompasses those talent, skills, organization, and individual people who fall under the different realms. And we have so many different categories and different lanes that people participate in that falls under the umbrella of arts and culture. I don't want to start like naming names of different lanes and different type of businesses that are out there that fall under arts and culture umbrella. But you know, we see a variety of different things, right? We see all type of artists, from singers to folks who play different instruments, from actors and actresses to we've seen a lot with the drag ball. That was a phenomenal event. Then you see a traditional artists, painters. You see a lot. We've seen a lot of activity from folks who are DJs. We see a whole a sector of the arts community that comes under the nightlife branch. It's a lot. It's a lot of different factors and sectors to the arts and culture community. And again, we just want to do our part as it relates to government to best serve the community in any capacity that we can.
Okay. For me, one of the most interesting aspects of this developments of this work and how it happens during the pandemic was redefining what arts and culture is. Because prior to that, and again, I've been in this field for quite a long time, arts and culture was associated mostly with 501c3 organizations, with nonprofits, with especially big nonprofits, opera, ballet, art orchestras, museums, things were kind of providing not just high level entertainment, high class, but enrichment, but also they serve as magnets for tourism, for economic development, and things like that. But what you just said, and what kind of correspond to what I'm learning and what I'm seeing, that arts and culture and creative economy, which is actually a new term that recently started to pop up, it's much broader, it's much bigger, it's much more encompassing. Let me ask you this: are you familiar with research on natural cultural districts that was done in Philadelphia?
I'm sorry, you said, am I familiar with research?
Yeah, it calls natural cultural district.
No.
Okay, this is something that I'm really working, but and we probably need to. It's a huge research that was done by University of Pennsylvania, social impact of the arts project. Two professors, Mark Stern and Suzanne Seifert, Philadelphia Reinvestment Fund, and it was funded by National Endowment for the Arts. They created a very interesting, one of the results of this project was creating a great tool called Culture Blocks, which showed a concentration of cultural organizations and providers and businesses and individual artists in every block of Philadelphia. Unfortunately, it was hosted at some point and Office on Arts and Culture. Unfortunately, now it's kind of down. I hope, from what I've heard, it will be restarted next year. But definitely, it's a great tool. It's a great tool for actually understanding where arts lives, what they do, and because of that, one of the things that these researchers did, they quantified social impact of the arts, not just economical, not just economy, but social. What is your understanding of social impact of the arts? How you feel about it?
I mean, I didn't have an opportunity to read the study, so I can't really speak to what they suggest the social impact of the arts and culture community is on the city of Philadelphia. Again, I think for me, when I think about my role and I think about government's role in general, I think that our role is to support the community and to give people who are in the community, who are the experts, a platform and opportunity to advocate for what it is they feel like they need to advocate for, and put them in a position where as though their voices are heard, and to put ourselves in a position where we can hopefully deliver on as many of those things as possible. I think that we've shown some of that in the midst of the work with the Arts and Culture Task Force. Like you said, it started with a few folks and then it broke out into subcommittees. And when you look at the report that was produced and you go back and look at that report and look at what on that report turned into something that actually has taken place, I think that you could say that the work that was done and the collaborative effort that we've seen can be a successful formula when you're talking about public-private partnerships. So, I don't want to get into the position where I'm the one who's defining what the arts and culture community is, what's considered arts and culture and what's not. And I really don't want to get in a position where I'm trying to communicate and dictate to people not just what the community is and how it's defined, but also discussing impact. If folks are put in a position where there's some level of research that's done that talks about the social impact, especially when we're looking at the level of trauma that people are seeing in the city of Philadelphia because of the COVID crisis, because of the gun violence, because of the hit and run crisis, because of some of the incidents that we're seeing within our schools now. That's another area that's having some level of support needed because of some of the issues that they're facing. I think our goal is to try to have those, make those connections and ensure that those intersections happen. So I just don't want to get into the position where I'm talking about my opinion and how I feel, because I'm not an expert in the field, and I don't think that government should operate in a role where we're defining what's taking place in the community in a sense of saying what should take place and what shouldn't take place, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yes. I really appreciate this position because it's not too often I hear from government officials and from people in the government that they want to actually listen and give people a platform where they can express their opinions.
I mean, that's been the most effective for us, right? Like it's us listening in the community coming to a consensus. And essentially when that happens, I think it puts us in a position where the advocacy becomes clear, concise, and on our end, hopefully more effective. And I think that's the goal. So for us, this public-private partnership model that we have is something that we want to continue. You talked about the direction of the task force. We're hoping that there's some level of revitalization to the task force. The administration has already allocated $5 million to arts and culture. So we want to see how those dollars are dispersed and what they're spent on. And this is the type of initiatives that the task force essentially was extremely effective at when it came to the last budget cycle, and we're hoping to continue that advocacy. We also seen significant advocacy around the nightlife economy and having some type of nightlife manager. So we're hoping that that idea turns into an actuality, and we want to make sure that, again, is done in a way that's effective and responsible and, of course, equitable. So there is still work to be done. We're still working with our state partners to put us in a position to look at what we're doing as it relates to restaurant owners and folks who own different type of establishments across the city, and some regulatory relief around what they can and cannot do. Because again, we know that folks are restricted with space because of COVID. So what can we do as our role in government to hopefully offset some dollars that organizations are losing, and maybe provide them with a little more flexibility so they can operate and try to generate some revenue and do it in a way that's safe. So we recognize that the arts and culture community in the city of Philadelphia is a huge part of the viability of our city. And we want to put ourselves in a position where we're doing our part to allow those folks who do what they do, allow them to thrive.
That's perfect. Yeah, it's great. It's actually a big change from the position of city of Philadelphia was taken for quite a while. Let's put it this way, and it's finally becoming, recognizing that arts and culture is a way to create a future city, like some people are proposing. So when you're talking about state partners, can you be more specific, please?
Sure. We've been working with State Rep Jordan Harris to put us in a position to provide at least cities of the first class. We're hoping counties across the Commonwealth, but at least cities of the first class, a little more flexibility as it relates to regulatory relief for restaurants and establishments here in the city of Philadelphia. People are restricted right now as it relates to how many happy hours they can do per week, what hours a day they can do those happy hours, and what time those establishments have to close. I think that there's some controversy around the 2 a.m. Component of that, but I think if we could put that part on the shelf for a second until we come to some level of agreement of what direction we can go in as it relates to 2 a.m. and just have a conversation about some of the other regulations, I think that we can find some common ground with some of our state legislators and put us in a position where we can give those business owners some flexibility around what they can do around happy hours and specials and different things like that. A lot of people don't know that there are restrictions on how many hours a week you can have, the time of day you can do different initiatives. And if we give folks a little more flexibility, again, it can put them in a position where they can maximize their individual businesses as well as their individual talents.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And you mentioned about providing spaces. I do remember, because I was a part of this report. I do remember one of the proposals was like an establishing local cultural centers, maybe using government, city property that is currently abandoned. Is there any progress on this front?
Not yet on that particular initiative. I think that was one of the things that we felt like was an excellent idea. And when discussing implementation, we knew that that's something that would be a little longer as it relates to the timeline to be able to put together a space like that. So for us right now, we would try to nail down and accomplish some of the things that we know we needed to accomplish that were right in front of our face. And this is the nightlife economy position. This is some of the stimulus dollars that we were able to provide, and some of the other advocacy efforts that's taking place for dollars to go into different arts and culture space. So we feel like we can attack some of the other things as the recommendations were given to us based on the Arts and Culture Task Force. And that's one of the things that's on our list that we'll be looking at as far as trying to find those safe spaces for young people to convey.
Okay. Yeah, and I would be really interested to talk to you guys when you get to this, because I'm developing a proposal how to do it, actually.
Sure, no problem. My door is open. We want this to be a collaborative effort, so we would love to hear from you.
Okay. Sounds great. So you already kind of touched on what's next in terms. I know the council session just started a couple of days ago, but what's next on funding for arts and culture?
So our priority is to advocate for another round of Illuminate the Arts grants. We think that was a successful program. We think we put together a quality model that didn't have many questions. Often when you allocate money to different communities, people question the process and wonder why some folks got money and other folks didn't. I think that we kind of did a good job of putting us in a position where people believed in the process that was created and are happy with what was done. And so if we can, if we have a model that works again, and we can be able to show eventually how these dollars begin to impact our economy, we justify why this is important and why we need to continue to do it. So our focus, first and foremost, is to try to get a second round of Illuminate the Arts grants. After that, we do want to see some dollars go to the cultural fund. We also want to see some level of support for grassroots organizations that have already received funding, so we can ensure that they're moving in the right way. And then, of course, the nightlife economy position, we're hoping that is something that comes into our actuality. But again, we will be looking at other recommendations in the task force. We will be looking at other recommendations from the task force, and we will also continue to work with our state partners around regulatory relief. So those are some of the things that you can look forward to coming up next, specifically looking at council having resumed last week. Okay.
That sounds encouraging. It sounds really encouraging, and it just I hope that this time it will be more concerted effort among city council people who support our arts and culture, because unfortunately, like in my opinion, and the opinion of people I talked to last time when we had when we had this major battle for allocation of federal help that was provided to the cities, that there were so many conflicting proposals from Councilman O, from Philadelphia Cultural Alliance, and so on and so forth, that at the end, it came down to the kind of lowest amount, which again, nothing to take from you guys from that you were able to find this money for illumination grants. And I know about the process. So it was very objective, which is again, not often, doesn't happen often in grant making. So
I mean, I think when you look at the budget process, we did have some successes. We did have $5 million that have been earmarked for arts and culture. It's just a matter of how those dollars are going to be allocated, right? So we can look at 1.5 million possibly and illuminate the arts grants. We can look at another round of dollars for the cultural fund, where more dollars can be allocated to organizations across the city. We still have some flexibility because, again, of the 5 million that was earmarked outside of dollars that already went to organizations like the Art Museum, like the African American Museum of Philadelphia, and other establishments that the city supports on a consistent basis, such as mural arts and things like that. And then on top of that, arts and culture-based organizations also had the opportunity to apply for, and we know some of them have because we wrote letters of recommendation to some of the gun violence prevention-based dollars as well too, because a lot of the work that's done in the arts and culture space from a programmatic perspective falls into the category of the gun violence prevention initiative that the city had launched and is continuing to push as we speak. So there were some success in the last budget. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Can you please expand on this?
Can I do what? I'm sorry.
Can you please expand on this topic on using arts and culture in gun prevention?
No, it's a programmatic thing. So a lot of, we talked about Jane Golden, and she has the Guild program, and she has other initiatives that come under the arts and culture umbrella that also serve as prevention-based initiatives. And I'm sure she's not the one. I know a young girl named Monique who has a dance program where she services mostly middle school at-risk girls. So, prevention-based initiatives wear a lot of different hats across the city of Philadelphia, and often those hats have dual responsibility because they also fall in the arts and culture world as well too. So we're hoping that we see some of those dollars fall into the arts and culture space. We're optimistic that that's going to be the case, and we're going to continue to advocate and fight for resources and other initiatives that access to space and things of that capacity for the arts and culture community, and because we feel like that's our role, that's our job in this partnership.
Okay, Councilman, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your advocacy. It means a lot for people who are actually working on creating this. And I really hope to see you at some point in one of our events. We have a big program now, actually working in the center in Northeast Philadelphia for arts and culture, pretty much season of arts and culture. So hopefully we will see you then. And thank you for your time and for your work.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the work you do. And of course, thank you to your listener audience. And please send us the information, and we'll try to make it up to the work that you're doing up in the Northeast. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.